Good afternoon and welcome to today's Pleasant Hill Precinct-22 Council debate. I'm Rick Kinsler with FM 92.1. Before we begin the questions, it's helpful for residents to understand the structure of the city government they're voting to lead. Pleasant Hill operates as a special charter city under Missouri law. A charter functions much like a local constitution. It establishes how the city government is organized, how authority is shared between elected officials and staff, and how decisions are carried out. Under Pleasant Hill's charter, the city is governed by a mayor and a 4-member city council, supported by a full-time city administrator who oversees day-to-day operations of city government. Council members serve staggered 2-year terms so that the experience and continuity remain on the council from election to election, and representation is structured both geographically and citywide. 3 council members represent the city's precincts, while 1 council member serves at large, representing the entire community. Mayor presides over the meetings, helps guide policy and discussions, and represents the city publicly, while the council works together to set policy, approve budgets, and make decisions affecting Pleasant Hill's future. Understanding the structure is important because the mayor must work closely with both the council and city administrator to move priorities forward and ensure the city government operates effectively and transparently. And so today, the Precinct-22 council candidates will debate the issues for the April 7th election. Questions being asked today were submitted by a community of Pleasant Hill and reviewed by a committee. And so thank you to PH MoMag, Citizens of Pleasant Hill, and the Precinct-22 candidates, being you all. And with that context in mind, we'll begin today's discussion about leadership, policy, and the future of Pleasant Hill. Each candidate now will have 60 seconds to give a short introduction, and we will begin with Jessica Elliott.
Short introduction. My name is Jessica Elliott. I have lived in Pleasant Hill since 2008 when I moved here with my son. I work for a global technology company, and I supervise a team that handles financial investments for large dollar customer base.
Very good. Next, we'll go to Kathy Babylon Gilbert.
Hi, I'm Kathy Gilbert, Babylon Gilbert. I have lived in Pleasant Hill my entire life. I'm a 3rd generation resident, and I have worked as a realtor for over 25 years. I worked right next door at KC Vintage in lovely downtown Pleasant Hill.
Very good. And next, we have Claire Herzog.
Hi, Claire Herzog, of course. I moved out here in 1991. My parents built their first house out on Purvis. My dad started his construction company out of our little extra bedroom. And it's kind of funny, we started our businesses the same way, both after working for someone else and then thought we could do it better our own way. So he's taught me a lot about life, and I graduated in 2002 here. My daughter is in 3rd grade. I didn't want to raise her anywhere else but here, and I've been quite privileged to have started my mobile dog grooming business. And within 6 months, I couldn't take new clients, and that's a large part to this community.
All right, and now we have Kayla Fain.
Hello, Kayla Fain. So I'm a disabled veteran, active duty, 6 years, Army. I moved here. I've been associated with Pleasant Hill since 2007. And when I finally stopped traveling for work and military stuff, we finally bought a house in 2023. I have my bachelor's degree in human services with a concentration of family and child services. I advocate for veterans via helping them get disability and helping them get their rights and things like that, especially with veterans with PTSD. And I work for a nonprofit where we advocate for men and women that have been affected by rape and sexual assault in the military via retreats, conferences, and camaraderie.
All right. So we're going to begin with governance, transparency, and decision making. And one of the issues that comes up quite often in the community, I'm going to start out with this question, and we'll start with you, Kathy. Do you support an independent audit or performance review of city operations? Why or why not?
I do not. If I did, I know they've been collecting signatures for 6 months. If I did agree with it, I could probably have 600 signatures in 6 days. I do not agree with it. I don't agree with the cost, and that's just it.
All right, same question. We'll go to you, Claire. Do you support an independent audit or performance review of the city operations? Why or why not?
Not at this time. I want to see more of what our new administrator does, at least maybe in her first year. So far, she's been pretty impressive, and I want to give that leadership a chance.
All right. Kayla, we'll go to you with the same question. Do you support an independent audit or for performance review or performance view of the operation of the city? Why or why not?
So I'm told that the city pays for a contractor to come in and do a city audit already that we pay for. I know that this one costs a little bit more and you need to get approval from the state and all the things. But at this time, I kind of agree with Claire. I want to give Kristen a chance to kind of steer us in the right direction because she's got a good head on her shoulders, and I can't wait to see what she's got going.
Okay. And then we'll take the same question to you, Jessica. Do you support an independent audit or performance review of the city operations? Why or why not?
So I do support the audit, and I'm actively involved in obtaining signatures for the audit. I certainly believe that we don't know what we don't know. In order to move forward, I think we need to understand where it is that we're at and how we got there. An independent, we do get a cursory financial audit annually required by the state. It is by a firm that the city selects. This would be a comprehensive audit by the state of Missouri. The city of Pleasant Hill has never had a comprehensive audit. It will tell us what we're doing well, which I do think we do a lot of things very, very well. But it will also tell us areas that we can improve upon. It will make recommendations. And, I do believe, I agree with you guys that I think Kristen is awesome. And I think that she's going to lead us in a lot of great directions. But along with that, as far as going over the budget this year, she recommended a review, a consulting review of our water rate increase. She wanted to hold back on increasing water rates arbitrarily to get that review, get that independent review, and find out what the best way forward is. And it's the same concept with an audit. Yes, it does. There is a cost with it, but I believe we'll see that cost come back tenfold. And I do believe that that it would be a good investment for the city. I think it would be a good practice, and Don Donovan said it, it would be a good practice for the city to budget for it every few years so that we know we're in compliance and also try to restore some of the trust within the community.
I could see that.
Okay, so the amount that's going to cost, we've got to put that out there because we just keep saying there's a cost. The cost is $80,000 to $120,000.
That's correct. Yep, and we do put it out there.
But also, I've been through a lot of real estate commission audits, and they're going to find something. It may be a T that's not crossed, an I that's not dotted. I don't think the cost outweighs what this audit could find. In my opinion, I'd rather see us spend the money somewhere else.
So how much do we pay a city administrator, right? Like salaries with our staff, things like that. I'm not asking you to answer the question. I'm asking you a rhetorical question,
Yeah.
right? And so we're spending all this money with staff. From when I was trying to ask about what I was supposed to expect from if I got elected in this position, people have told me, they're like, well, you're going to get a packet the Friday before, and then you got time to read it, and then you're going to make a decision about it on Monday. And I was like, that's not a lot of time, one, but then two, this is where I would be stepping in if I were elected, of like backtracking and being like, say, hey, who's doing that city audit? I want to see some accountability, and let me see what you did. Let me see that you did the job. Let me see if we did it right, because you've put your trust in me to make these decisions. And so if you can't trust me to make the financial decisions, then why am I sitting in this seat?
Okay.
Bravo. Good job. I like that.
We're going to move on to the next question, and we will go to Claire. Do you feel like it's a conflict of interest if a council member is romantically involved or living with another council member?
I do. Jessica, I like you. It's
okay.
It's been fine getting to know you and stuff, but a lot of things in my life I try to look back and like what is ethical. And personally, for me, I just don't feel like that's good optics and doesn't look great. I know at one of the other debates, you guys have said that you've been pretty open about that, but Dr. Patterson didn't even know what they were talking about initially. So I don't know how much that's out there, but it's definitely something that concerns me as a voter.
Okay.
All right, we'll take the same question to you, Kayla. Do you feel it's a conflict of interest if a council member is romantically involved or living with another council member?
I'm going to have to go back to my previous answer. So, once again, if my voters have voted me into this space and you don't trust me to have the accountability and the integrity to do the job that you need me to do, whether they're in my house or not, then I shouldn't be sitting here. And neither should the other person if you can't trust us to make the right decision. I understand the pillow talk and I understand the vote blocks. I understand all of that. But if you don't like it, you've got 3 other people to vote for.
All right. Jessica, to you with the same question. Do you feel like it's a conflict of interest if a council member is romantically involved or living with another council member?
So I think that I understand the question. I don't know that I agree that it is a conflict of interest. And I know it's personally directed at me. And I think it's a valid question. And I had the option of whether or not I wanted it asked at this debate. And yes, I do want to ask. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm an independent person. I've done a lot of things in my life. I've been a single mom. I have raised my son. I have been a foster parent. I have been a power of attorney. I have been a city clerk. I have been, I'm a supervisor at my job. I get promotions on my own. I bought my own house. I've raised 4 children, all graduates of Pleasant Hill, Missouri, in our school district. And I did all of that without the help of the person that I'm currently seeing.
Your own and adoptees.
Yes, my own adoptees. All of those people are volunteers. They are college graduates. They are homeowners. I do believe that I can do a lot of things. I'm the lead deacon at my church, and they appointed me to that position as well because of their faith in me. And I do think that anybody that knows me, if you don't like it and you don't agree with it, then don't vote for me. But if you know me and you know my conviction and my own personal stance, then vote for me.
All right, Kathy, to you, do you feel like it's a conflict of interest, a council member romantically involved or living with another council member?
Well, I said this to these ladies earlier. I think the question's rude, but the optics aren't good from people looking in. I have more concern about a mayoral candidate that defaces city property and an at-large candidate that has a current litigation with the city than Jessica getting elected, in my opinion.
I appreciate that.
All right, very good. We're going to move on to the next question. Of course, you guys know with politics, candidates, there's always a lot of talk that people want transparency. And in transparency in government, how does transparency play out in your role if elected? What steps do you think the council and mayor should take? Start with you, Jessica.
Okay. So I've been a city clerk in the past. I do think that transparency, it's been talked about in some of the other, it's been brought up in the other debates of having a second reading. That was actually my recommendation at the Q&A. I've been very vocal about it at council meetings that I've been attending for the last couple of years that I would like to see a second reading. I know that we do a second reading within the same meeting, but that's not really what I mean. There are other cities, and I brought an example with me. I really don't need to put it up here. But what I mean by a second reading is that we read it in one meeting, and it sits, it gets heard. That gives us time to go out to the public to say, hey, this is what we're going to do. What is your opinion on it? Then it comes back, and it gives the public a little bit more opportunity to read it again. It gives council a little more opportunity than to just sit there and say, oh, here's, like Kayla was saying, here's the packet. We need an answer now. Gives us time to think about it, do our homework, do our due diligence. And it's incumbent upon us as council people to do that homework and to make sure that the decision we're making is very thoughtful and thought out. Other things that I would like to do is I would like to see some more data-driven staff reports. Things that are on the consent agenda, I would like them discussed. Anything financial needs to be discussed in an open session, I believe. I think that it's important for us to work directly with our city administrator to make sure that we're asking questions and understand what's going on within City Hall and City Council. Budget amendments, that type of thing. And our purchasing policy, I do think that we need to review our purchasing policy and make sure that we are making more questions financially related in an open session. And I would like to know in open sessions where we're at in the fund balance, at least monthly.
All right, same question to you. We'll go to you, Kathy. With transparency, how does transparency play out in your role if elected, and what steps do you think council and the mayor should take for transparency?
I don't really like the word transparency. I like the word efficiency. So if each department is running at its highest efficiency, then transparency will just fall into place. And I mean, just like I've been on planning and zoning a few years, and I've asked a couple different times just for a simple checklist. So a homeowner that wants to build a house can come in and say, this is what I need. And we still don't have that. So I just think getting the departments more efficient would bring the transparency.
All right, Claire, question to you. How does transparency play out in your role if elected, and what steps do you think council and mayor should take?
I've thought hard on about how it really pertains to our precinct and our voters. I think there's a harder time with communication with our voters just because some miss having the newspaper, or not everybody has internet access. Not everybody has a smartphone for, apps and things like that. Kind of thought if there was like a way we could have like a quarterly meeting or something so we could talk about what's really important to us, especially, we all live down on this side, our homes are older, and there's a lot of things that kind of play into that, and we don't really have a voice right now for that on the city council, and so that's something I would like to see improved.
All right, and same question to you, Kayla. Transparency, how would that play out in your role if elected, and what steps do you think council and mayor should take for transparency?
So I've been trying to figure out what that looks like, because like for the CID thing, right? And everyone's like, I didn't know that even happened, right? And then there was like, oh, we had a city council meeting about it and whatnot, right? What is it that we do? Is it that we go out in public and be like, hey, this is what's about to happen. You need to come to the city council meeting. Hey, this is what's about to happen. This is about to happen in your city council meeting. If you don't want to say, or you don't care, then I'll go the other way, right? But just going out and talking to them, I guess that grassroots thing, you could even do the newsletter back in the water thing. Rob likes the apps, we like digital things and scanning QR codes, just like communication, going out and talking with people. They're like, oh, I've never actually talked to anybody. Well, then come up and talk to me. My eyebrow looks pretty scary, but I'm like, hi, how are you? Pretty much after you get through past that. But I just want to see them be able to go out and talk, but also when people do come over to city council, we need to answer the phone. We need to be able to sit down and talk with them. We need to be able to like listen to what they have for concerns, because usually I can't get in or to the phone line, or no one's calling me back, or whatever it is. People feel like they're not being heard. And so just, putting those in place, but then also implementing them.
Piggyback on you. Do you know that only 0.03% of people come to city council meetings?
I know.
Sad.
So
Isn't that crazy?
either they don't know when it is, they don't have time to show up, or they think it's fine.
And it's
So,
on a
we don't
Monday
know.
evening, right? Like Monday at 6. People are driving back to work and have all the things. Like, I know it's posted, I don't know. I know
Friday before.
Yeah, Friday before, but
Yeah, and that's where I would like to see upcoming things put in the newsletter.
Yeah.
Like they do a lot of community events in the newsletter, but what's actually coming ahead, like this is what we're going to be talking about, or on social media. That's not going to reach everybody, but we do have a newsletter that goes out. We have water bills.
Yeah.
We can attach something to.
yeah.
I went back and looked through the residents discussion page, and some things get posted from the city there, but I feel like some like council meetings and stuff, people are going to pay attention to it more there than they do on just the city's page. Maybe that's something to look at too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On our website too. I mean, we could definitely be putting some things on our website. If people actively want to know, they can go out there and look at it too.
I know in planning and zoning, we've thrown around the idea of doing a digital community board that's as you coming into Pleasant Hill. So events and, just all the things can be there while they're sitting in traffic. They can read it, or they could pull up into that parking lot and watch it. So it's just another idea that has been thrown out to help with the sign issue.
And then we've also, the four of us have talked about even after this is over, monthly, quarterly, whatever it is, we wanted to be able to sit down and like discuss what's happening in city council meetings, discuss what's happening in 22. We're kind of tired of everyone trying to treat 22 like the rest of the town. That's not what it is. You're dealing with the blue collar, you're dealing with their parents and their grandparents. And they want to be in the know. So just even the option of like coming and saying hi and asking us questions on a daily basis.
We get along really well when we've sat, and I really appreciate that with all of you.
All right. So we're going to move on to the next question. I go to you, Kathy. What formal checks and balances should exist between the mayor, council, and the city administrator, and how will you uphold those checks and balances?
Well, myself personally, I'm going to roll my sleeves up, I'm going to show up, and I'm going to make a difference. But again, back to efficiency. The efficiency of the departments is going to come through when it gets to council.
All right, very good. Kayla, same question. What formal checks and balances should exist between the mayor, council, and city administrator, and how will you uphold those?
Yeah, right? Like 2 on 2, and then you get the mayor for that split vote, right? So that not everybody has the more power than the other. However, how I would handle it, if you know me, I'm definitely do you see me seeing you type person. And so, like, I'm all about accountability and integrity, and just being present in those moments of doing my job, of why I'm there, right? So.
All right, Jessica, we'll take that same question to you. What formal checks and balances should exist between the mayor, council, and the city administrator, and how will you uphold those?
So I do think that as far as the mayor, council, and the city administrator, we have to have a good open dialogue with our city administrator. I do think that it would be it's important to have some of those things that I talked about earlier with transparency, as like have some visuals on the staff reporting. Like, this is where we're at. This is how we're functioning. Progress reports. I think Kristen is very open to that, and I think she'd be very good at it. Just in her past, I know for a fact that she has been. But it's going to also be a matter of us as city council representatives asking questions and being involved and understanding what it is that we're doing.
All right. Now we're going to move on to prepare.
need a break?
Everybody good?
I'm good now.
All right. So we'll keep going. We're going to move on to, or wait a minute. I didn't give.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Give Claire, same question, Claire. What formal checks and balances should exist between the mayor, council, and the city administrator? How will you uphold them?
I think that a second reading kind of plays into that as well. Communication. For me, I think you just have to keep your face seen in something to not let it slip and get out of sight and out of mind. So just staying focused on the right things.
All right. So now then we'll move on. And I'm just going to stay with you, Claire.
Okay.
So this is about preparing for revenue decline with potential reductions in property taxes, possible elimination of the state income tax, and discussion of removing sales tax on food, all of which could significantly impact municipal revenue. How should Pleasant Hill prepare for a period of declining revenues?
That terrifies me more for our precinct. We unfortunately seem to just get, I don't know if it's because we aren't vocal enough with the city or where it's not fair. So if we are losing that, it's going to make it even more difficult on us with, the water runoff problems. I know everybody wants, a lot of us, would like our sidewalks replaced, but they are the homeowner's responsibility. My daughter and I went on a walk this morning, and she's like, let's get on the sidewalk. And I said, no, that's too dangerous. And that's not how a sidewalk should be looked at. But I, I have to do a lot of careful consideration, looking at the budgets and things. I mean, things are going to have to probably be skimmed down and stuff to kind of offset those things.
All right, Jessica, same question. With all those property tax reductions, elimination of the state income tax possibility there, discussions are removing the sales tax on food, all of which will, could it significantly impact municipal revenue? How should Pleasant Hill prepare for the period of declining revenues? Possibility of that.
So I think that we need to start doing that now and not wait until it happens. We need to stop some of the spending that we're doing. There are some recommendations that we can do to improve things and maybe not be in the same position next year that we're in. We don't wait until, when you're planning your life, you don't wait until, we'll just wait until next year when that thing is due, and you start preparing for it now. I'm sorry, can you repeat that again? I had some more stuff.
Yeah, it's so with the possible elimination of the income tax, the reductions in property tax, discussion of removing sales tax on food, all that could impact the municipal revenue. How should Pleasant Hill prepare for a period of declining revenue? Yeah,
and so along with that, I do think that there are some areas that we can do to stop spending now and maybe make some additional cutbacks to our budget. I think Don Donovan had talked about it in the mayoral debate about allowing more of our nonprofits to take over some of the things, some of the city event planning that we have. The downtown has done an amazing job with, these buildings and revitalizing parts of it. We're doing things at the fairgrounds. We're doing things here. And I think that we can do that. We can stop, travel expenses, just make those cutbacks that make sense. We're not going to get anywhere if we stay where we're at.
Kayla, same question to you. With the property taxes reductions, possible elimination of the state income tax, discussion of removing sales tax for food, all of which will impact municipal revenue. How should Pleasant Hill prepare for a period of declining revenue?
First of all, I hate taxes. I definitely would have been the person to lead the Boston Tea Party for sure. No taxation without representation. I like that idea with the nonprofits, but then also because I have an event brain, so I'm used to planning things on large scales, And so when I have a single objective, I usually pull from a whole team, right? So I'm pulling and partnering with this person to give me this, and I'm pulling and partnering with this person to give me this. And so like where we can be disciplined for like events or fair or you know, shimmies or whatever it is downtown that we're doing, like, hey, how about a donation? How about you want to sponsor? How about you want to, you know, everyone's like the rich, you know, are the ones that, okay, well then let's go. Like, let's start trying to delegate some of those things if we're really worried about it, like partner, bring in. I mean, it takes a whole team. It's a whole city. It's not just a single person's idea.
All right, Kathy, and that one will go to you as well. If reductions of property taxes, possible elimination of state income tax, discussion of removing sales tax on food, all that could significantly impact municipal revenue. How should Pleasant Hill prepare for a period of declining revenue?
Well, first of all, I would not want the administrator job because she's going to have to be the bad guy and get rid of some of this fluff. I went through the budget, had 40-ish questions for Kristen, and I went and sat down with her. There is, if you go through the budget line by line like I did, there is some fluff in there for stuff that they're planning for that may not happen for the next 5 years. So it's really not as bad as it appears to be. But since you brought up events, and Kayla and I have talked about an event on Thursday that I want to talk to her more about putting together with her VA people, and absolutely get sponsors. There's no reason that the city should have to pay for an event. They can organize it, they can throw it, but there's no reason for them to have to pay for it. The Shamrock Shimmy cost them $740, and all that was porta potties. So they had people doing other parts of that event, and the city needs events.
As a business owner, I would be happy to
Right.
donate to those
Right,
things.
right,
I sponsor
There's
stuff all the time.
So many business owners in this.
Yes,
town.
and they just got to be asked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody's getting asked for anything. They're just thinking that they're just going, here you go, here's your piece of paper. Okay, let me just do that. No one likes to ask questions.
Well, and I do think that the sponsorship, you know, they also get the recognition of their name. It's out there,
absolutely.
and you know, it spreads the word about their business. It's free advertisement, and something I wanted to point on, and I know that we probably will get to it in another question, but absolutely, we have to get the Economic Development Council going. Now we should have had it done a couple of years ago. Kathy, you were involved with part of that, and
It
we
was
really
0
need
to
to get
2
it.
years.
Yeah.
On the comprehensive plan, 0 to 2 years, and we are in year
Four,
and it's
and
not done.
And yeah, I mean,
Yeah, and those are questions that are coming up. So
Okay,
we'll
okay, we'll
get
wait-
in
we'll wait for
just
that.
a little bit.
Yeah.
So, anybody else got anything on that one? All right, gotta
I
move
did,
on.
but it was gone.
Yeah.
Sorry.
yeah.
That's okay.
Fart in the wind.
Good?
Yeah.
Okay.
She's,
So,
she's old.
Kayla, we'll start with you. We'll start with you. How will you maintain existing services and continue infrastructure expansion if revenue decreases? So it's maybe a little bit of a different angle on the question before. How will we maintain existing services, continue infrastructure expansion if revenue does decrease?
So I think I'm sorry, I don't mean to jump in, but I think in the mayor's debate, they asked, what services would we protect? Is that what you're trying to get at?
Yes.
What
How we
services-
maintain, so yeah, you're going to have to prioritize is basically what it's going to get into.
So you're asking me who I don't want to cut and who I do want to cut? Is that what you're asking me?
Yes, you could go there.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Well, I'm not cutting public works. I'm not cutting police departments. I'm not cutting fire. I'm not cutting school stuff. I'm not cutting, like, what do you want me to cut? I'm going to be trying to find the fat somewhere else. I'm not about taking people's jobs away. If anything, the purpose is to bring more jobs so that we can have more people in work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that the question?
That feels like the question.
It is.
It's a great statement. I don't think that was the question.
So there's the
concerning.
two of them are how will you maintain existing, which in the follow question to that, and you basically have answered both, is immediately following is a question which would you consider reducing, which would you protect? So they are related.
Okay.
And so, by answering what you're saying, my understanding is that if revenue is going to decrease, we're going to have to prioritize in
Right.
some fashion.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to be trying to find the fat somewhere else. I'm
So
talking about people's
next-
lives. I'm not trying to take more money away from them. They're already having enough problems as it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, Kathy, same question, and again, I'm going to put them both together because they are absolutely related. And so, how you maintain existing services and continue infrastructure expansion if revenue decreases, and if they do fall short of projections, which city services would you consider reducing, and which would you protect?
So in the reality, us 22, our infrastructure is old. And so it's we have to protect our sewer and our water. And you don't know what that's going to cost, and you never know when you're going to need to spend it. So I'm glad that Kristen has put a healthy budget to protect our infrastructure. People talk about their sidewalks. You just talked about sidewalks. Sidewalks are a homeowner's responsibility. It is not the city's responsibility. It's the homeowner's responsibility to maintain their sidewalk in front of their house. With that said, I do have some ideas that would be a win-win. One, would get the sidewalks fixed. Two, it would assist the homeowners. And I've talked to a couple of people at the city, and there is absolutely programs out there. You're going to end up with a lien on your property until it's paid off, just like any other. I can explain that to you later. But it's a way for us to get those sidewalks fixed. If the people a whole block would have to say, okay, let's do it. But there's ways to do it. And I'm willing to spearhead and do whatever I've got to do to make that happen.
Gotta fight.
We got to fight.
Fight. Not each other here.
Claire, we'll take the same questions to you with how will we maintain existing services, continue the infrastructure expansion if revenues decrease, and which services would you reduce, which would you protect?
I wouldn't want to reduce anything either. Just got to find a way to keep that funding coming in. There's been some talk about a use tax. I know it sucks, but we're going to have to find some way to fill that in some way. It's definitely something for the city council and the community to have a conversation about, and see where we can go with it and keep it going forward.
All right, Jessica, and that same questions go to you. How we maintain existing services and continue the infrastructure expansion if the revenue decreases, and if they do fall short, what would you protect? What would you reduce?
So I would always want to protect our infrastructure first and our law enforcement. We need to have a safe, functioning place to live above all else. As far as what I would cut, I don't like the idea of having to cut anything, but it simply comes down to needs versus wants. And, I've been a single parent. We've had a lot of things thrown our way, and I've had to make that decision a lot of times in my life. And it's not always easy, and it's not always comfortable, but, we just have to look at it as realistically, what can we do? I think that absolutely, we brought it up once, Economic Development Council, so that we are finding other ways to bring in revenue or development that does help protect our infrastructure and find other revenue sources other than a tax base.
2 heads are better than 1, 3's better than 2, and 5's definitely better than.
Yeah. Communication.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we're going to move on to economic development and business growth. So, obviously we've been talking about possible reductions. So now we're going to talk about the other end of that, economic development and business growth. How would you promote economic growth? And let's start with Claire.
I know it's kind of an upside down situation between residential growth and economic growth here. And we may need to consider kind of having more conversations about trying to slow the residential growth down to help which I know that probably doesn't make you happy as a real estate agent. I think you have to look at those things and really figure out how to balance them. I know with our 9.1 tax, currently it's harder for new businesses to want to come here, especially industrial. And I think too about how that would affect us down here. And unfortunately, we don't have a whole lot of room for industrial growth and stuff. But my business is so service oriented that I sometimes honestly get kind of stumped on what a totally different kind of business we should go and look for and to see how we can keep growing our community.
Kathy, same question to you. How would you promote economic growth?
Okay, the first thing we need to do is we need to fill these commercial vacancies. There's just a handful. There's not even really that many. But we need to figure out some businesses that we could promote our town with. We need to put something nice and pretty and take it to them and bring them, show them, and get them into our town. Also, you got to have rooftops to be able to do that because they've got to have the people. We need some light industrial businesses, which would bring more jobs, which would keep people in town to spend the money rather than driving 30 minutes to an hour to go to their job. Keep them in town, being able to make a living working in town, that's a priority. A job fair may be a priority to help. I know Fine Cut's always hiring, Kohler's is always hiring, and then the Economic Development Council is a priority between city staff, entrepreneurial people in town, Claire, myself, the Chamber of Commerce, banks in town. Let's come up with a deal to really make it attractive to bring someone to town.
Jessica, we'll go to you. How would you promote economic growth?
So I believe, again, going back to Economic Development Council, I think that we need both. We need light industrial. I said both, but we need light industrial, we need retail, and we need homes. We need homes for young families to be here, but we have to have jobs for them to come here for and want to stay in. We're currently experiencing a declining enrollment rate, and one of my kids had to go buy a house out in Holden because he can't afford to buy here. We need to develop that. I do love the idea of having like regular job fairs. What is our town offering? I really liked an idea brought up in the mayoral debate about advertising to developers. Like this is what we would like a neighborhood to look like, and having that plot ready for them to like bring in neighborhood type developments that are for younger families. We desperately need young growth here. But we do need some retail, and one thing I'd really like to see is some more service-based businesses. We currently go out of town for a lot of service-based businesses. We have two, maybe three places that do oil changes, but it's really hard to keep up with that. We have one veterinary place. We have a couple of dog groomers. There's a lot of businesses that provide services that we leave town for, and I'd like to see a lot more of that here.
Yeah, with 8,000 people in town, we probably have 2.5 dogs per house.
That's fair.
So,
Yeah.
I got three.
Claire.
I mean,
Yeah.
Claire had to stop taking grooming at 6 months, so there's a demand for it.
she won't even groom my dog.
It's not personal.
Kayla, we'll go to you with the same question. How would you promote economic growth?
I'm with them. Light industrial. We need retail. I want to be able to go shopping. I want to go get my nails done. I want to go to a spa. I want to go get massages. I want to go to that bowling alley. I want my kids to be able to go to a community center. I like all of the things that I have to leave town to go do. That's what I want right here. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I support small business. I even had told you, I was like, you're gonna have to fit me onto your schedule, girl, because I don't want to have to
Got to fight Kathy.
do right.
I don't want to fight.
But I love, I like spending my money at Press Monkey. I love going to the cigar place. I like definitely expanding what we have, putting my money into where this is where I'm at. I'm a block away on Campbell, and I can walk down here. So I like going to Brown's. I like going to Divine Ohm here. I mean, Connie's got her piano lessons. Like, that's where I want to spend my money. And so, like, just making sure that they've got it. And then, like, if there's a way that we can allow, Pleasant Hill is full of small businesses, whether they're electricians, plumbers, lighting, all kinds of stuff. Make it easier for them to have like a space so that people actually know that they're there. You're Googling all kinds of stuff and getting people on Google from everywhere else. I'm getting Raymore hits. I'm getting, when I know there's probably like 15 electricians within a 10 block radius of me.
Yeah.
Do you know how many people the Cactus Shack brings in every weekend? A bunch.
I love the Cactus Shack.
The Cactus
It's so
Shack is great.
colorful.
But you know what? If we had a tri-fold flyer that showed where every business, every restaurant was in town, and it was at every business and every restaurant in town, those people that don't know where that stuff is, they could pick that up and go, oh, look, I could go get a coffee here. I could go get a coffee here. I could go get Mexican here. And it's just consistency.
like a simple do you
It's a
know.
simple-
And that goes with a communication
simple.
thing. Yeah.
And a communication piece.
Well, and one thing that I have noticed, and we're down here, our downtown has done amazing things, but there are smaller businesses and they're not open. We're down here on a Sunday afternoon and business is not open. So we need to have those businesses, those retail businesses, that are open all the time. Maybe not all the time, but at least on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
It's mainly Tuesday through Thursday, just
Yeah.
because of the consistency of the traffic. They were just not getting people down. Sunday's family time.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily shopping time. I mean, I could shop on Sunday,
I could shop on Sunday.
but Lisa was down here by herself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
She had to make a change to
she
her
had to
hours.
make a change, and for her family, Sunday was family.
Yeah.
All right. So now we're going to go into we visited a little bit. We're going to go back into taxes, revenue, and financial policy. And we've already talked about the possibility of reduction in taxes. And this was mentioned earlier by one of you, and I can't remember which one it was, but do you support the use tax or not, and why? Start with you, Kathy, on that
Oh,
one.
great. Thanks. Well, Amazon comes to my house, not necessarily for me, but probably no less than 8 times a week. And we are paying less than 5% tax on that. So why would we not go ahead and pay the little extra to get extra services for our town? I think the state's going to end up mandating it, so why not go ahead and put it through? So if it was on the ballot, I would vote yes. How's that for an answer?
That's fair.
Very good. Claire, same question. Do you support the use tax?
I do.
Yes or no?
I do. We're going to have to figure out a way to kind of help bring that income in. My daughter thought she had to have something today. So, of course, I had to pay so much on an order to get it here overnight. And I actually had 2 different drivers drop off something. And that's adding to, pounding the pavement. And we need to maintain those things.
Kayla, same question to you.
You-
Do you support the use tax? Why or why not?
There's that taxation question again. I can tell you that the residents of 22 don't want their taxes raised. Period. I'm a devil's advocate just because I'm a donating type person anyway. So if I'm shopping and I have to pay that 2.75%, I mean, and I'm like, oh, we don't have money to do this, or oh, we can't do this. And, well, I'm gonna at least try to contribute to the change, right? But also, like, you don't want to pay more freaking taxes. Like, we're being taxed to death in every, like, how am I going to pay taxes on something that I've already paid taxes on to own?
Yeah.
Yo, you can miss me with it.
Well, like on Amazon, it's 5%. So they're just going to add 2.5, 275 or whatever it is to just the Amazon order. It's not like you're going to be 9% and then up to 11.5%.
Right.
So
And
it's
so it
not
puts
even
you-
to put, it puts you less.
Yeah, and it puts you up to like the 9.1 that you're paying in
Right.
town anyway already. And so if my residents tell me no, I'm not voting for it.
All right, Jessica.
So obviously, I don't like increased taxes, but I would support a use tax if we could verify that it went to infrastructure. If it went to solely infrastructure and was, if we had a way to mandate that it would be for infrastructure, I'd be more than happy to pay for it. We talk about Amazon, coming to town, but if it's not Amazon coming to town, it's us going to other towns to get those products that we can't get here. So
driving
that's
on
where,
regardless.
it's a give and take. And if I have to pay the tax in another town because that's where it's at, then that's what I have to go do. But if I could guarantee that money was going to go towards infrastructure, I would pay for it.
Well, they have to put it on the bill, they have to earmark where that money goes.
I don't know that they talked about that. I don't
It
think
was in
they,
the city council meeting that
That
they
first one of the
absolutely,
year, wasn't
they
it? Yeah.
absolutely have to say where the money goes, and they couldn't agree where the money was going to go. So until the money is agreed upon where that would go, that's when it will help the ballot.
Hold on.
Yeah.
And the mayoral,
So what about that? Let's, what about that, sports betting? What about the stuff that we voted on for that? Is it going to anything? Do we know that? Is it going to the schools?
supposed to be going to schools, but it doesn't always. And that is where,
Right.
in the
So, I mean,
mayoral
like-
debate, John King talked about it. Don Donovan I think they all talked about it, that any council could change where that's directed. Even if we had it on ballot language, they could change it. So there's no guarantee that it would. And I don't know if maybe if it were a different type of, maybe if we could enact a Pleasant Hill infrastructure tax, I'd be more than happy to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But not if it's free reign to go anywhere. Because that's where that's the number one thing that we need to protect, and that's the number one thing I would want it to go for if I'm going to be paying taxes on it.
That's fair.
So
Yeah, I think that's fair too.
Yeah. That's fair.
All right, Kayla, we're going to start with you in the next question. With the recent news that the city is in a deficit and may dip into the fund balance, what are your ideas
they are
to
dipping
balance
into
city
it.
budget so we do
Hardcore.
not have to dip into the fund balance? How would you balance the city budget?
Isn't that what my city administrator's for?
Yeah. she kinda leads that.
Right? Sorry, Kristen. No, so I just want more eyes on it. I'd want to be able to be there. So we went to that meeting before the council meeting about the budget.
Yeah.
And we went page for page. Kathy had questions on every single line that she could find something,
I
right?
called my running mate in. You guys were at work.
Yes,
So,
yes.
Or I would have all.
no, I was
forwarded-
were
actually
out of town.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
out of town with my son. Sorry.
Yeah.
And I would just, chime in and ask a question, and, the bleacher thing was brought up, the money, the loan or whatnot. And I'm just like, I'm asking questions. I'm like, hey, I heard that this is what happened and we got a loan for this. And, is that how it's working? And they were able to sit there, and Kristen and Amy were able to answer my questions for me. And I had asked her specifically, I was like, hey, has anybody that complains about any of how we're spending any of our money, have they sat here with you and gone through this page for page? And she looked at me, she's like, no. And I'm like,
I think it was us two that showed up
yeah.
and asked.
But just in
questions.
general, not just that day of us showing up, but like of sitting down the city administrator and being like, okay, so this is it's public, it's out there. So if you want to be in on the decision, show up. Right?
Yeah. Part of checks and balances.
Yeah.
And transparency.
Yeah. I mean, we can beat this horse to death all day and ask and answer all of these questions. But if only 250 people voted out of 1,600 or 1,900
In
or
our
whatever it
district.
is in our district, 250, that's less than a fourth that's being able to make your decisions for you. And yet, I'm not hearing solutions, right? Come to me with some solutions and like, let's put our heads together and we can figure this out.
All right, Jessica.
Can you ask the question again?
Yes, I can. With the recent news that the city is in a deficit, may dip into the fund balance, what are your ideas to balance the city budget so we do not have to dip into those fund balances?
So, like I said before, I think that we stop doing some of the spending now. I know Kathy said she looked at the budget, and there's probably some fluff in there that we can change. Right now, I think that we put a moratorium on any traveling, any we did the rodeo thing, and I know it's nice to have interactions with other communities and other curricular activities and those types of things, but in my job, I work for a global technology company. We don't do those things. We focus on the job at hand. We have, if we dip below our projected budgets, people get laid off, and I would really like to avoid that if possible. We need to do some things to prevent that from happening now. In my own personal budget, I'm not going to take money out of my 401k to go to the movies or throw a party. I'm not going to do that. We need to really look at the ways that we're spending money and make those changes now.
Kathy,
Okay.
you want me to repeat the question for you?
Sure.
So, with the recent news, the city is in a deficit, may dip into the fund balance. What are your ideas to balance the city budget so we don't have to dip into the fund balance?
Well, I'd already said there was some fluff in there on some projects that are not even on the radar to do, but they've already got them in the budget. With that said, we don't want to make the mistakes of cutting too much out and then we have a catastrophe and then there's no money for it. And I don't want to jeopardize city services and waste money in the long run for doing that. So I don't know. I just don't want to be Kristen.
Yeah.
I don't want to cut employees. But there's also some common sense brought into this. And I've got a whole diagram and paper I want to share with these ladies after this, just regarding the excavator that was voted down by council. I don't think they looked at it correctly. I don't think it was presented to them correctly. But I want to share it with these ladies when this is over.
Okay, Claire, same question. With the news that the city is in a deficit and may dip into the fund balance, what are your ideas to balance city budget so that we don't have to dip into the fund balance?
I definitely would want to lean on Kristen, and because she's been pretty great so far in the has it even been 2 months since she came on?
Yeah, barely. She's a
Yeah,
rock
and
star.
she's been on it
Yeah.
already. And I think it's great that she took the time to sit down with Kathy and Kayla to go over things. I'm not great with some of this stuff. I just like having the conversations like we have together and just keep brainstorming on things. Somebody could have a really great idea and then somebody else would know how to keep building on it. So just keep the conversation going.
Can 22 have 4 candidates?
Right, we're
instead
just
of
a council
one?
of ourselves in 22.
We could just have our own
we
council
just
in
like-
22.
Yeah. Yes. And
Can I say something really fast about
Yes.
what you said about the excavator? That's a solution, I feel like. You came to me with a solution. You got rid of something so that I can get another one.
Oh,
Yeah.
I've got it laid out.
Oh, good. Okay, good. I'm just saying,
I've got it completely laid
like
out.
the person came with solutions,
Yeah.
and then like what else do you want, right? Like he figured out where he could pull that money from, and it's where in his budget where he works and what he needs and what his team needs, right? Like,
Well, I'm just going to say a little bit a part of that. The Park and Rec got rid of 2 pieces of equipment, did not get any new approved. So they have to borrow from Public Works. Public Works has 2 excavators, 2 skid steers. One is fairly new on the excavator, one is old. And any given day, both those skid steers are being used. So that puts it down to maybe one excavator could be used by our Park and Rec. And then they're responsible for taking care of our city lake, which is, I don't know how many acres it is, 20 some, 30, I don't know how many acres it is. I should have looked that up. But they sold 2 pieces of equipment for $55,000. They had to use 20 of that to offset a deficit in the pool. So now they have $35,000 to offset $100,000 they want to spend on one piece of equipment that has a maintenance program, a brush hog with an arm that can do the lake sides and also up into the trees, and then a smooth bucket. So I did take a break from real estate and I sold cars, so I did the whole car thing. I did like I was going to sell this car. So $100,000, he's going to put $35,000 down, which is what he has left of what he spent. So that's really only $65,000 difference. So if he chose to do that for 60 months on a financing instead of like what they did, that's $13,000 a year. They projected that it would be $20,000 a year. So I wasn't sure where the money he got back for his sold equipment went, but $13,000 a year, divide that out by weeks, that's only $250 a week. So if you take it by 72 months, do the math, that's $208 a week. Take it by 84 months, which that's most car loans now.
Yeah.
84 months. That's $178 a week for this piece of equipment that can do everything Park and Rec needs done. So that got poo-pooed. So now he's got to borrow Public Works equipment when it might be available. And then I found out that Park and Rec doesn't have any way to pull the equipment. Their truck and trailer is not big enough to pull said equipment. So that takes 2 employees to get that equipment moved to the location for those guys to do the work. The common sense just got thrown out. So they're wasting time for 2 employees to move one piece of equipment, and that's if we don't have a water main break in between and then it gets pulled off that project. So I think there's a problem with some common sense.
Good job.
Tangent over.
We,
And you may or not agree with any of that. But if you want to see my math, you're welcome
I do
to look
know.
at it.
I appreciate this, and there's a lot of work going into it, and it's fantastic. But I would not have approved the excavator. I think that there are other options that we could have
Even
explored.
at $178 a week?
Even at $178 a week.
Because you can't rent one for that.
Well, but we don't need it all the time, all the year. We're going to use it out at City Lake, 3-6 times a year, maybe. And we don't have
think
to have
so.
anybody
I think
pull it.
it's more
If we
than
rent
that.
it, somebody
Yeah.
brings it, they drop it off, and they take it away. It's just like what's happening up on 7 right now. There's an excavator up on 7 right now where they're putting the fiber down, and somebody brought it, dropped it off. It's going to go away. We don't have to maintain it.
That's
we
not
don't have
ours.
to.
It's not a city
know.
thing.
I know. I'm just saying, for example.
Oh, okay.
But it's not it's not ours. We don't have to maintain it. We don't have to carry insurance on it. We don't have to, worry about our guys breaking something, trying to move it back and forth, and
But that's a contractor. That's not a city employee.
No,
Those are contractors.
I know, but I'm just thinking there's one out there that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it got delivered, and it will go away. It would be the same thing if we were to rent one. That's all I'm saying. I don't think I'm not saying we don't need one ever. Right now, with where we're at, it can wait.
now
she thinks that part's fat.
That's just my thought.
for sake of time, I am going to combine the next 2 questions because they're very, very much related. The next 2 questions is there a circumstance you would support raising taxes? And if you did, how would the higher rates, how would you attract large ticket retailers to Pleasant Hill rather than push them to neighboring cities if you did support raising taxes? And let's go with Claire. So it's a two-part question. Is there a specific situation where you'd consider raising taxes? And if you did that, then what would be your answer to attracting large ticket retailers to our city rather than pushing them out because of our tax rate?
You two might be able to kind of help me solve this. So if you're, because you're better with numbers than I am. So if you're saving money, not paying into your state income or your personal property anymore, we have to trickle that down, and it's going to have to be brought in a different way, right? So I would be curious how that looks for my personal budget. What do I have my gains and losses with that? Just be my, I don't know. That would make a difference to me, personally.
That's fair.
Go ahead, Kayla, on that one. Is there a case where you would support raising taxes? And if you did raise taxes, how would you attract large ticket retailers to Pleasant Hill rather than push them to neighboring cities? Or do you think it would push them to neighboring cities?
I think you're seeing that with the new price chopper. There's a lot of people that are saying that they don't want to shop there because of it, right? Like the higher tax rate, right? I don't know if I would ever raise a tax rate. What am I paying for?
Yeah.
What am I paying for? I want it to go back. Like, I want to know it's going back into the city. I want to know it's going back into the school or the kids or the roads. Like, I want to know where it's going to. And so, like, yeah, there's no, not really anywhere where I would raise taxes, as I've stated before.
Jessica?
Me?
Yep.
Kathy looks like she's ready to go.
I was ready.
She's ready for this.
Oh, go ahead, Kathy. We'll shoot it to you then.
Well, raise taxes as a blanket? No. To raise taxes to pull development in, I'd like to look at that. I don't know that I agree with the full 1%, but every other development everywhere around us, the Price Chopper in Lee Summit, the Price Chopper in Raymore, the Hy-Vee in Raymore, the Sam's Club, the Costco, they're all getting deals. So if we've got to do a deal to bring in some industry, we might have to do a deal, but it's only for that location. So on $100, the new Price Chopper is going to cost you $1. You can't drive out of town for $1. It's going to be a convenience. And I hope to have a salad bar.
Right. Sushi.
Sushi, salad bar. I mean,
what's to stop the developer from raising it again and again? Like, I mean, what's to stop it? He's the only person that can make the vote. That you have no say whether it
there's a
changes or
time
not,
there's
right?
a time limit that's on it. It's 27 years or
Okay,
this
good.
much money paid back. It's,
yeah, that
there's
one
there's
wouldn't
there's checks and balances in that.
And
Yeah.
they would have to bring it through public hearing. They would have to bring it through a public hearing. The 1% was brought in 2 years ago at a public hearing. So
That there was 30 of us in the room. I was in the room. I happened to be there for that one. The developer had a watch that probably cost more than most of our cars on.
That's fair.
So
Yeah.
he could do some deals on the old Price Chopper. I think we should hit him up.
Right.
Go ahead,
Right.
Jessica.
okay, so I think, can you read the question because I want to make sure I answer it fully.
Yeah. Yeah, so I combined two of them. Is there a circumstance that you would support raising taxes? And if you did support raising taxes, how would the higher rates, how would you attract large ticket retailers to Pleasant Hill rather than push them away?
So, there are different types of taxes, but as far as raising our sales tax, I think that we would need to understand, I would want to understand where it's going. I would support it if I thought if I were able to confirm, like I said before when we were talking about that, if I could confirm where it was going to, I would 100% support it and publicize it. And I think that is, I think that's a lot of what's missing with our public is not being informed, not understanding, being surprised on the back end of, oh, by the way, this is going to cost you more.
Yeah.
I think, if we want those developments and the community wants those developments, we need to get them involved and ask them first, is this what you want? Is this going to benefit our community, and get that involvement? And I think if they're on board, they would support it. So it's really going to be a conversation with the public, and not particularly me, what I would do or what I wouldn't do. I would definitely want to be a voice for the people in that respect.
Well, the Price Chopper project, I mean, they are getting the deal, but the other 4 pads that are affiliated in that parking lot are not getting a deal. So we've got opportunity to regain some of that money with
Something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A restaurant.
Yeah.
I mean,
Something.
a bar, a pool hall. Yeah.
So we're into the
sushi
last
bar.
section. There was one other section, but I'm going to combine these, and I did this on the previous debates because it does apply to vision, leadership, and priorities, and it has come up repeatedly over the years. And so for our last section on vision, leadership, and priorities, I'm going to start with this question. How do you view the 2040 comprehensive plan? Because that does have to do with the vision of Pleasant Hill. So let's start with Kathy, you on that one.
Well, I was on that committee, the 2040 comprehensive plan. There's a lot of good stuff in this. I've read it then, of course, whenever we worked on it. I've read it twice since then, and I've gone through and circled, look, we need to do this. And it said 10 to 20 years, but we're not planning for that. So let's plan for that. All it is, for lack of better words, it's kind of our roadmap to where we think we want to be. But that is like always changing. I mean, it's just like ebb and flow. It does always change. It's just a nice little package, a pretty little package that was done for about $67,000, I think, is what they spent on that. And the number one thing was the Economic Development Council, and it still hasn't been done. So, along with about 6 other pages of stuff. So, was our money spent well? I don't know, because some of the stuff hasn't been done.
All right. Claire.
I kind of looked at it as like a blueprint, basically.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're going to have to take it back to, I can't think of the word, the structural engineer, or I don't know. Anyways, you might have to take it back to like the council or whatever and keep working on that. I mean, year to year, things change here. The economy changes.
Gas prices change.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I think that they need to get that done. That council.
I think they're working on it.
Yeah, I think that could make a lot of improvements.
What's the roadblock?
Jet.
Do we know on the council?
I don't know what the red block is.
Oh,
I
I'm
don't-
asking
okay.
a question.
I mean, me, I already had it in place and going because I don't.
Yeah.
It needs to be a priority.
I
Once
don't
I'm
jack
given a
around.
task, you kind of just have to get the task done. That's
Yeah.
how it works. Yeah.
Jessica, how do you view the 2040 comprehensive plan?
So I view it as a guide. It's, like you said, a roadmap, directions, this is where we see ourselves. Can it change? For sure. Just like your GPS, you might change route. You might, take a side road instead of, the quickest route. But yes, the Economic Development Council does need to be put in place. I think that is the number one priority as far as getting ourselves out of deficit, getting ourselves on the right path. And you had made the point that we spent $67,000.
Yes, that's how 68. It was around there, which
For
was
that.
a lot of money.
And we don't want to pay $80,000 to $125,000 for an audit. And we just, like you said, we wasted that money where we have for the last 4 years, that had input from business people, it had input from council, it had input from realtors, developers, and we've ignored it for the last 4 years. So I think that it should be put to use. I think it's a useful guide. It's not a Bible that is a strict guideline, but it's a guide for where we go. It tells us where we're going to have our zoning, what areas can we use for certain things, and it'll help us decide where we want to push things in the future. That's what I
Another
think.
thing that was listed that is huge is the community center. And the plan needs to start right now, because in the comprehensive plan, it's a 10 to 20 year. And we're 5 years, almost 5 years in, and no one's made a plan. So, not sure. Maybe we don't have enough people in our town for that. I'd like to see a little study on that.
I would too. I think that's a great idea. Yeah. I do know. I've been visiting some other areas. There's a town in Wisconsin, and they got a community center. And I think that they got it all, if I remember right, through grant funding. And I know people throw out grant funding all the time, and it's a lot more difficult than people think. But there are a lot of people within our community that I've talked to and I've met that want to help with stuff like that. And just aren't sure where to go. So,
Maybe we need to AI some Powerball numbers.
dude, yeah.
Kayla, how do you view that 2040 comprehensive plan?
Let's do that.
I mean, I think we're all in agreement that the Economic Development Committee, all the things, right? But and I think that it's a really good, guideline to go by. I think that when I hear you guys speak, I mean, because I haven't been a part of like Pleasant Hill government, so I've been listening. I've been observing for the last 6 to 8 weeks, right? Even longer. I've just been listening and just.
I'm enjoying it.
And you got wishes in one hand and shit in the other. It just depends on whether you're going to get the work done. Who's going to do the work? You're going to show up and let's go. Like, I'm not here for you to give me a packet on Friday for me to make a decision on Monday. If you guys want to, we wouldn't have a full ballot if that's how people wanted it to be done. They're wanting the change.
It's a great point about having a full ballot and wanting something different. It's like that for every open seat right now, and I think that it's great that the community is really showing up for this right now. So.
Yeah. You have so many different opinions. You have so many different viewpoints, small business, real estate. I mean, you've technology, like you've got all different kinds of backgrounds, advocacy, and just in general, I think that moving forward, something's going to get done, because I think that after we've been involved in this, we're not going to just let it kind of, it's going to, hi, what are you doing, Jessica? What are we going to do today?
Yeah.
Come on, Kathy, we got to plan something for this month. Like, it's just kind of, hey, I see you, you see me, let's show up and do the job. I'm not there just for a Friday.
Yep, and I think that that's a great point. I mean, I've been going for a while. I've been going to city council meetings for a while, and that's not going to change whether I get elected or not. I'm still going to stay involved because I see how important it is.
Yeah.
All right. So, Jessica, we're going to go with you on what are your top single priorities for the city if you are elected, and what measurable results do you predict in your term?
So I'm running for Precinct-22 specifically because I am, I believe we need more advocacy down here. I've been an advocate my entire life. I've never been afraid to speak up for myself and, do the hard thing. And, I've talked to a lot of people in this community, and I really feel like that City Hall is not approachable, or that if they show up at a council meeting, they're not going to be heard. And I really want to change that perspective. I want to be a voice for the people. And I want to, we've had our street overlay project. Every year we put money into it. And I do think that Tony needs more money in that specific fund. I think we need to maybe shift some things around and fund that a little more. But not a single street in Precinct 23 or 22 has been touched in the last 3 years. So I want to make changes that require that some more even, that's applied fairly, and that I think John King said that it's, and maybe Robbie Gear in the last one, that that services would be provided, based on who's showing up and who's putting in work orders and that kind of thing. I want to see the data behind that. Where are the work orders? Show me where they're at. I do think that it needs to be incumbent on city staff to understand the infrastructure needs. And I think that Tony has a good grasp on that, but it can't be that, like John King said, oh, well, these areas are showing up and they're the ones putting in the work orders. So we're just going to ignore the rest of it? That's not okay.
So we need a pad of work orders
Yeah,
to drive around with.
something. But we need representation here on Precinct 22. I want to make sure that, decisions made by council are made thoughtfully with time, enough time to actually do the research and inform ourselves, inform the public, and have that public engagement.
Kayla, what are your top single priorities for the city if you're elected? And what measurable results do you predict?
Measurable results.
Measurable.
Right. Well, let's see. Say it to me again. Say it to me again. Ask me again.
Say it again. Okay. What your top single priority for the city if you're elected, and what measurable results do you predict in your term?
Top priority, obviously, infrastructure, but I got to say my top priority is going to have to be communication. I don't think that people know how to communicate anymore. I think that everything's black. Everyone thinks that it's black and white, or your idea is right or mine's right. It's not, hey, I like that part of your idea, but what if we took that and put it over here and worked it this way? Like, you telling me that my idea is wrong or it needs to be fixed isn't an attack on me or my character. Like, that communication needs to be there. Everyone needs to stop putting their emotions into everything and running by personal opinion. I don't think that should be how politics are run anyway. Our residents have said infrastructure, water pipes, sewer. That is what they're worried about. They're tired of their basements flooding. They're tired of water lines breaks in the road not being called water line breaks. They just want to be heard. They want to be seen, and I got you. Yeah.
All right, Kathy, go ahead. What is your top single priority for the city if you're elected, and what measurables do you predict in your term?
Okay, top priority would be pushing to get the Economic Council going. Number 2 would be fixing the, what do you call it? The curb in front of the post office is a 6-inch trip hazard. I just about tripped over it on Friday when I stopped at the post office. And the other thing is getting the streets striped. We have no idea where to park. There's no stripes left. Connie's screaming yes over in the corner. I want to see that done within 30 days, if not sooner. I can go out there with a paint and a brush. They need to be striped. Up by City Hall, those got a little bit of striping. We need stripes down here in 22.
Yeah.
All right. Claire.
Me.
I was going.
We've sat and talked together, and we have a lot of the same ideas and stuff, but something Kathy came to us about was the sirens. And,
Scary.
Our residents down here, and
That's a good point.
so that's something we should all be focusing on as well.
Explain that out loud.
So
Your whole.
go ahead.
I don't want to repeat what you.
Go ahead. You can explain.
First of all, on that day that they went off after the power came back on, I was having a panic attack because the school was sending kids home. You couldn't get through. I didn't know what bus my kid was getting on, and then the sirens going off, and I was just. It wasn't fun.
I know in the work session the other day, they're allotting $30,000 a year to start replacing the sirens. We have, I think there's 2 to 4 that aren't working correctly. One being out at City Lake. They're only supposed to be able to be heard outside, which I can hear them in my house. I'm just worried about that lady that is 75 that may or may not know how to use her phone. The electricity goes out, the TV goes out, and the alarm doesn't work. And there's a tornado coming. I mean, we're due. I know you guys don't like it when I say that, but it hit in 57, again in 60
Connie.
something, and then 77 was the
Knock
big
on
one.
wood.
But it's just, we're in Tornado Alley, and I'm just scared to death something's going to happen. So after I was at that meeting, I downloaded 3 different ways for me to know if there was a tornado coming. And it's mainly because I rode 77 out, and it is scary as a little kid.
Amen.
Yeah.
Question, and tell me if I'm stupid for even suggesting, but like, can we put like little solar panels on those things?
My husband said an inverter, but we haven't gotten that answer yet. So
Solar.
another issue,
sounds
I did ask staff, what's the plan if we have a disaster? And I don't know that we have a plan in place. I'd really like to see that as a councilwoman. What happens if we get hit?
Yeah.
Well, it's a great question, and JW brought it up when he came to the council meeting in the last time. And so the city has, we have an emergency, like we partner with Red Cross,
Right.
And there's supposed to be an emergency preparedness plan in action, but I think as soon as JW was no longer on council, it hasn't been brought up since. So I think that that's another thing that we need to actually make sure that we're putting on and keeping ourselves aware of on each, as we turn over councils. Like, this is what we were working on. This is where we're at. I think it's extremely important to make sure that, because city staff will sometimes go and work on something that a prior council had told them to work on, but we don't know about that. Or, we may need the priority to shift. And I'm not saying emergency preparedness is 100% something that we need to do. I would fully support. But another thing is when Tria was on council, it was the fire hydrants. And we have several fire hydrants that need to be repaired and replaced. And we haven't addressed that in 2 to 4 years that I know of. So I guess it was 2 years because Tria was on 2 years ago. But emergency preparedness should be a number one. And I believe that 100% that that's part of infrastructure.
Yeah.
And I did ask the last time we did have, I'm so sorry, I know you need to get to something, but we don't have a citywide tornado shelter. And we need to have that. The family across the street texted me and said, hey, if this comes, can I come get in your basement? Of course they can, but
What if you're not
what
home?
if we're not,
Yeah.
yeah, what if?
I'm breaking a window.
Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously, letting you continue on this because emergency preparedness, that's vital for everybody.
Yeah.
And so we are getting down to our final few minutes, and so I'm going to finish with us. I want each of you to give me a 67 second closing of why you're the best candidate to help guide Pleasant Hill's future. Starting with you, Kayla. Why are you the best candidate?
Best. I was born to advocate. I joined the military at a young age. Service is kind of just ingrained in the fabric of my skin. We already go to the state capitol to advocate for veterans. I'm actually going tomorrow to go do a big old speech. And I'm not afraid to do that if we need a change. If I'm already up there, I might as well go see, Bill and all of them up there and be like, hi, our residents need some support over here, and just kind of get it on their radar, if anything. But like, oh yeah, no, we need to do that. No, we need to do it now. The discipline, the accountability, the integrity. That's where I run. I run on a team. I definitely don't ask people to do things that I'm not willing to get down in the dirt to do myself.
All right.
So yeah.
Claire.
I like to admit things that I'm not in the strongest suit of, and I think that's why we have diversity on the board. I'm not great with numbers very well, but I am a hard worker. I run my business by myself. I take care of my daughter by myself. I have really enjoyed learning more about the city and talking to people, and just having the conversations, and I want to continue doing that and give back to my community.
All right, Kathy.
I think I said it earlier. I want to roll these sleeves up, show up, make a difference. I want to advocate for my 22 folks. I think there's a lot of changes that could be made. I am like the queen of fundraising. So speaking of queen, I brought the queen. I helped bring back the queen pageant for the Cass County Fair, and I've got to hit the road here pretty quick so we can fund that again, because the budget wasn't there. And I said, well, I can get some people to throw in some money, and we did. So I guess my superpower, I said it earlier, is getting stuff done.
All right, and Jessica.
So why am I the best? Well, I do have intimate knowledge with how City Hall works and the day-to-day operations. I do think that is a benefit, but I really believe that I can be a voice for the people. I am not afraid to do the hard thing, the right thing. It may not always be what everybody likes, but I'm kind of used to being that kind of person that maybe I don't make you happy, but is it the right thing to do? Yes. I know how to live on a budget. I know how to understand wants versus needs. I feel like in my life, God has brought me to every place that I've been. And I kind of shared this with Kayla a couple weeks ago. But I feel like this is where I'm being called to act, and people have asked me to run. It's why I ran, is people were asking me to go ahead and run. So I think that I could be of benefit.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much. That concludes our Pleasant Hill Precinct 22 Council debate. And thanks again to PH MoMag, the citizens of Pleasant Hill, for getting involved with the questions, the committee, and the candidates. You all, Kayla Fain, Claire Herzog, Jessica Elliott, and Kathy Babylon Gilbert. So make sure you get out there to vote in the upcoming April 7th election.
Vote, 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 vote.